All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome back in BetSports Golf here for our first walk through of the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Really excited for this one. This is, I think, first of all, the golf course, Ron, is just as good as it gets on just planet Earth aesthetically. I think we are in desperate need of a solid field, an exciting Sunday leaderboard. We were robbed of that last year with obviously the weather that can come here, this part of the country at this time of the year. And again, just the standalone spot in the schedule, no football. They last year kind of took out the Pro-Am element on the weekends. So we really just have like elite athletes in the Pro-Am. It's a 54-hole, Pro-Am. So we don't get the Bill Murray and Larry the Cable Guy on the weekend and all that stuff. So really excited for this one. And a signature event as well, buddy.
Yeah, really glad they're taking this event more seriously. Obviously, like you said, iconic course, the way the jagged coastline meets the cliffs, the greatest meeting of land and sea in American golf. Really looking forward to, we got Scotty back, Xander's still out, but, wish the field was a little bigger, but we're sitting at 80 players right now. And, weather conditions look like they're pretty calm. I know we've had issues here the last couple of years with last year, only 54 holes. And then the year before, Justin Rose winning on Monday because, a lot of bad weather, rain, 2023. So, looking forward to seeing, who we can find here in the rabbit hole. And, should be a great week with no football. So hopefully we'll get more eyes on golf this week.
Yeah, we feel like we desperately need that for a few different reasons. I went to last Monday night. I took my family to a local simulator, and I got a 16-year-old who's starting to, he caddies in Medina, starting to, get an appreciation for the game. And after, just banging balls in the driving range for a little while, I'm like, all right, let's, play a course. We'll play Pebble. And we started to get to like 6, and you get to like 7, 8, 9. You start to get on the coast, and he's like, "What is this, Dad? Like, where is this? This is a real place?" And like, yeah, this is. They actually are playing there next week. And he's like, I said, actually, it's a public course too. Like, we could play it, because Medina's private. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, before at some point in our lives, we have to play this together." And dude, I can't even explain to you what that did to me, Ron. As your dad, I'm sure you would appreciate that too. I'm like, oh, we are. That's all I needed to hear, bud. Like, yes, at some point I will, fork over the $650, $700 greens fees plus caddy to take us out there, and we will make sure that happens at some point. So great dad moment for me, and I'm going to lean into that as much as possible this week and have him, watch as much golf as possible. So it helps when you have a big field, right? And you have the good, not necessarily big field because we have a small 79-man field, I believe is what it is, but the best of the bunch, right? We have Scotty back in hand and all. Obviously, I imagine if the hand was an issue, he'd probably still skip. So I feel like we should probably treat Scotty as if he's Scotty. That obviously complicates things always from a betting standpoint because Scotty in the field makes things look a little bit different. Take a look at the opening odds here too. Share this. You can see what Scotty in the market does to the betting lines. This is over at our friends over at Unabated, which is definitely worth your money for anything if you're betting. You can see still lagging on a couple of books, but Scotty as long as 550 on Rivers and as short as 4 out there on a couple different books as well. You can see Rory between 10 and 12. Morikawa, California guy, think built for this type of track. Same thing, Justin Thomas, short at 14. Ludwig, who broke my heart last weekend, just absolute cruise control early. Feels like a place that he'll win if he continues to go to Torrey Pines. That he'll win, and then just got the sick bug and struggle bus in the end of the weekend. It was really tough to watch. Felt good about Ludwig, and that was tough. Played really well here last year, obviously as well, coming in second to Wyndham Clark. Cantley here as well. Decky, Sanjay, Burns, Tommy Fleetwood, Jason Day, Victor Hovland. So you're seeing some guys that we haven't seen really since the century. So it's, again, elite field. Hopefully we get some fantastic golf this weekend. So, and again, Odds are going to be moving on a Monday morning. I know Ron and I have fired a little bit already. Those things are boards very fluid on a Monday. So shop around. Odd screens like this are very, very helpful for you to kind of jump in. But Ron, give us a little bit of an overview of the event. Obviously, I mentioned a little bit. There's a Pro-Am element. There is a multi-course element. We are not 3 courses any longer, but we are still 2 courses. Kind of give the folks a overview of what to expect.
Yeah, so last year's tournament kind of saw the beginning of numerous changes to kind of the structure of this event, continuing this year. And kind of as you said, it's interesting to go back and look even at the course history. This event always had like a specific group of players who love playing here. Jason Day, Jordan Spieth, those types of guys always came here. But yeah, when you go back and look at the course history, not a lot of guys have come here before as far as the elite players. And so I know the Pro-Am thing was probably a part of that. And last year the field was kind of sliced in half to 80 golfers with only 2 courses in play. And so kind of this year what we got is Thursday and Friday, we got 36 holes played between Pebble Beach and Spyglass Hill, as we got a cat behind me here. So we're going to get this guy down. I do love animals.
Couldn't even see him. It looked like he was in the ocean with a green screen. So he looked like he was swimming.
That's the reason I put that up there anyways. But no, so we used to have 3 courses. Monterey Peninsula was cut from the rotation last year. So just Pebble Beach, Spyglass Hill. Yeah, I love that course too. And so, yeah, similar to last year, there's no cut anymore. The final 2 rounds are only played at Pebble Beach and only by the pros. So amateurs is kind of only a weekend thing. And I was even looking yesterday and I didn't even see them release like who the amateurs are this year. I know last year they kind of went more towards the professional athletes and less actors. So we'll see. I haven't seen if that list is out yet this year, but yeah, like just really quick, both courses are kind of similar. They're both obviously on the Pacific coast. Weather, obviously, we've seen can change quickly and affect the outcome of this event. But yeah, as far as similarities go, they're both among the shortest courses on tour. Also, really small greens. As everybody knows, Pebble Beach has the most minuscule greens on tour. 3,500 square feet. So that's going to be a big part of my process this week, is just focusing on, strokes gain approach, on comparable greens that are really small. And obviously that does bring kind of around the green into effect here as well. And POA putting, again, you got pure POA here. And these are some tricky POA greens. You kind of go back and look at the data for that too. It's, 5 to 15 feet. There's some of the more difficult ones on tour. So yeah, Wedge Fest, and we'll get into off the tee here and some of these other stats, but yeah, it's kind of for me focusing on approach and putting this week for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's a spot that really minimizes driving. We can look at some of the data here. We'll look at our course stats sheet. You can find over on the site, and that kind of really highlights how much that's impacting what happens here. So let's bring this up here real quick. All right. If you look here this is off the tee, looking at driver usage over the last 5 years here, you see a typical PGA Tour event at 67%, and our 5-year average here is 43.6%. So less than driver, getting yourself in the fairway, keeping yourself in play. Distance is not something that is going to be rewarded. So again, you think of last year's leaderboard, and it's like, Ludwig and Wyndham Clark at the top. Driving a little bit more, something that can be taken advantage of at Spyglass. But when you're on Pebble, and again, we have a no cut event here where we have 3 rounds on Pebble. Driver usage is something that is kind of minimal. You can see the only thing that's really maybe above average is the good drive percentage. So that is good. That's capturing basically, a combination of off the tee and approach, keeping yourself in play. So, maybe good drive percentage on smaller golf courses or something like that is something to look at. But you can see how few drives of 320 plus are happening here compared to a tour average event last year. And again, wind aided and weather aided, 1.5% of the drives last year. It's such a sizable gap from a standard PGA Tour event, which is absolutely wild to see. Club head covers staying off, like just very easy to use a hybrid, use a 3, use a long iron and keep yourself in play. And you still don't have yourself, that long of an approach into these small greens. So definitely a spot where, the skill set of a Rory McIlroy is, probably mitigated a little bit. Probably why you didn't see Rory coming here before it was a signature event, right? So not to pick on Rory, but that's someone that separates himself from his ability to, bomb deep down the fairways here. So that sticks out to me. Anything that jump out to you here in terms of off the tee run?
I agree with everything you said. Like there's just nothing here to challenge off the tee. So many of these holes, you have to hit forced layups. The fairways kind of bottleneck, and the fairways are wide in general, but there's just not many hazards off the tee that are going to affect them. And so, I mean, you're basically hitting to a spot that you're comfortable with on your next shot to hit a wedge into the green. And so, it's kind of obviously these holes are very short to begin with. So, yeah, this is not really a challenging off the tee place at all. I may look at since this is so heavily less than driver, we do have the option to look at less than driver courses, and I think this is a place for sure to kind of use that metric just to see maybe if anybody sticks out off the tee, but as far as I'm waiting for my model, it's going to be very minimal for off the tee.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, is absolutely correct. It is somewhat of like reverse calculus where you're going, all right, where do I want my what's the distance that I'm aiming for here for my second shot into this green? So, you're just kind of doing the math backwards to get yourself in that range to be able to hit that club back in. So if we look a little bit into your approach, nothing jumps out, even though the greens are small, greens and red kind of, in line. One of the things that jumps out to me and looking at this stuff a little bit too, that they think will be interesting to see how this kind of changes and evolves over the years. To Ron's point at the top, last year was the first year that we really had some of the elite golfers coming here. So they're elite for a reason. So you might start to see some sort of change in the 2024 data versus, say, the previous years, because you just had better golfers down the board playing here. Smaller sample of guys, better sample of guys, versus if you look at the 2020 to 2023 data, that is a weaker fields, and that could be impacting the data as well. So having these things kind of match where we are from a tour average standpoint makes a ton of sense. Nothing that really jumps out to me here in terms of approach. I think looking at approach shot distribution and really what those ranges of are coming from, where those shots are. Distribution, you can see average approach over the 5 years, about 155 yards compared to 167 over a tour average event. So again, shorter wedges. And then you kind of just look at these things early on here. Total from 50 to 125, it's 11% higher, Ron. It jumps out to me for sure. I think some of the 200 plus can jump out a little bit too, but not way higher. Again, last year it was a little bit. That could be weather aided as well, but it's a wedge fest.
Yeah, and we've also got I think a lot of these less than driver courses, the shorter courses, they're kind of par 70s, par 71s. Well, this is the par 72, so you've got 4 par 5s, and that's another key stat this week is, obviously that's a way golfers can separate a little bit on the field of those guys who can score on the par 5. So I think that's another thing, that we can look at later on.
Yep. No, good call out. You can go again all the way down, looking at fairway and rough, and then the total distribution of where shots are coming from. I think it's really helpful for you to look into it. I always talk about how I'm very reluctant to put in like ranges in terms of shot distribution. I think this is a week where you can do it. You can also look at approach on short golf courses, because I think that can actually bring in a little bit of that 200 plus stuff as well on those par 5s. But I think looking at, you can see here 50 to 100, 100 to 150, I think is something you want to get a gauge on this week, more so than normal. Around the green, we talked about how you think around the green matters. Obviously, a lot of bunkering here, but what should we dig into from an around the green standpoint?
So these bunkers are among the toughest on tour. You can kind of see that close to 6% lower than the tour average overall. So, but yeah, I think you made a really good point before, though. You can kind of, if you kind of look at 2024, you can see it even more here, how, you see the numbers kind of improving. So I definitely think with a better skill set, these numbers will change, because I don't know if people realize, but the fields at Pebble Beach, for as great a course it is, have actually been on the bad side. Like they've been really bad compared to what it should have been for the golf course. And so I think we're going to continue to see that this year. But yeah, around the green, I think you definitely want to factor in bunker play. Some of these obviously when you have tiny greens like this, that affects that number as well. Scrambling, not as far as you can kind of look at the averages. Not really favoring rough or short grass. So yeah, I would for me this week. My main focus is just kind of general overall around the green, and then I'll have a weight in for sand saves as well.
We have small greens, so you're not going to get a lot of lag putting or anything from super deep. I wouldn't think too much, especially if you have these wedges in hand. You should be able to see pretty decent proximity. But we know putting on these California POA greens can be tricky. Is there anything specifically outside of obviously putting splits on POA that you want to look at putting wise?
Yeah, I mean, if you look right here, like you can see the 3-putt avoidance is higher than average, and it's not like you said, it's not because the greens are so huge and you have to lag putt. Obviously, they're the opposite, but it's just so tricky around the hole. And I think if we look at the ranges, I think the 5 to 15 is going to be. I would assume, I haven't looked at it yet, but yeah, you can see that percentage is way down, even more than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, that's hey, this week is all about those short putts and kind of saving par when you're scrambling, and yeah, that's something I'm looking at for sure.
Yeah, you can see here all these little smaller buckets inside 10 feet, basically inside 10 overall down, but 5 to 10 worse than tour average. Even last year was same thing for 4 to 8 and 3 to 5. So it does matter. It is a little trickier. Smaller greens, but again, these are the makeable. These are your scoring putts too, right? So these aren't, especially on a spot like this, where we got to, the mid-teens on 3 rounds of golf. This is a spot where we could be definitely approaching 20. So these are birdie putts. These are scoring putts.
And this is where, like, if you look at the course history, like you can kind of understand a little bit, like why Denny McCarthy pops here, because he's making all those. Another guy, Bo Hostler, Mark Hubbard, guys who have really good course history here, especially recently. Justin Rose, excellent putt around POA. So I think putting really should weigh heavily this week.
Yeah, I don't want to oversimplify, but yeah, I mean, wedges and putting. Scoring, you can look at some of the scoring rounds and ranges, birdie percentage, birdie from the rough. These are all, nothing that jumps out in terms of anything over a tour average. Let's touch on the par 4, par 5 stuff that Ron was talking about, just in relation to tour average. You see it a little bit last year where you see a pretty good jump, right? Look at the average the par 5 birdie or better percentage last year compared to previous years. You're seeing a massive spike in what happened last year on par 5s compared to a tour average event. And I believe we'll see that continue because I do think that that's a field strength situation here. But anything to add to the par scoring?
No, yeah, you said it all there. I think, some of the par 3s are among the tougher holes in this course. And, you can see those a little closer to overall tour average if you're looking at the last 5 years. But yeah, it is amazing to see pretty much every metric, easier just based on looking at last year's numbers. And so, again, thinking about, last year, I know, Wyndham was kind of tearing the course apart, and, I think it was 12 under through 54 holes, but, we haven't seen 20 under or better here since Snedeker in 2015. So I think if the winds stay calm, I definitely think we're looking at 20 under this week.
Yeah, you can see here Wyndham went 12 under in round 3. Was at 17. So he just kind of, didn't really separate at all until he just went absolutely berserk on Saturday there, which is crazy to see. Jay Day also went low there too. I know that there was a little bit of a wave advantage here, but you can crawl down here and you can click into any other previous year as well if you want to kind of comb through the leaderboard to get a sense of what happened. Again, last year is the only other year, though. It's the first year that we took out the actual other course. So this is just the Spyglass. There's no no third course rotation. And again, different fields, different element with the Pro-Am too. So again, harder to compare. You can look at the cheat sheet as well. Again, you go into tools, look at, we were just on the course database. You can look at the cheat sheet too. Just want to look at, best golfers in the field, who's playing well over the last 12 months. That's a lot of bright green from Scotty Scheffler over the last 12 months. This is why he's 4-1 to win this golf tournament. You just want to get kind of baseline stats before you jump into the rabbit hole. You can look at this as well. You just want to get, recent form, who's playing well as of late. You can dig in a little bit of who's, done what the last handful of times that they've teed it up. And then if you want to go over to the course history, like Ron said, that's kind of a quick snapshot of it here for you as well. You can mostly see the top of the board-ish is not really coming here very, very much because it's just not been a place that accentuates their game. Then you did have the Pro-Am element as well. So again, we'll start to see this populate more over time here. This salary will update when DraftKings updates their salaries. Easy way to search as well. But you'll see, a lot of empty spaces for the top players in the world because they just aren't coming. Cantley's a guy who would typically make this stop. It's got some decent course history. Matt McNeely, you'll hear at some point that, he grew up on this course and his very rich family has a mansion overlooking the course. But, a lot of the other guys have not been coming here too much, which is interesting to see. Tony in the chat wants to know one and done, Cantley or Keegan. I mean, good for you, Tony, that on a Monday morning, you've already got it down to 2 guys. I will always make the case for Keegan, but I mean, Cantley's a great look here. In a signature event, you guys, more course history and more familiarity here. But yeah, take your time. Don't lock into someone on a Monday morning for your one and done. Do a little bit more research. So Jason Day coming here all the time too, Ron, and a lot of top 10s.
Yeah, that course history is just sick here. Like, it's amazing how sometimes until you dig in, you don't really realize. I knew he was always good here. He played here a lot, but like when you actually look at, what is it, like 7 top 7s, like that's just crazy. So yeah. Even last year with the better field, he still finished 6th. So I just think he's really comfortable on these greens. I think he has a huge advantage, putting. And if he can just come with a, mediocre approach game, he's going to be in the mix.
Yeah. You can see here, Tom Hoagie's another guy that would typically tee it up here. I got the Hoagie win in 2022 over Spieth, which was lovely. You can see Cantley, like I said, Justin Rose used to come, but did win here in the extended version there back in 2023. Hostler, I mean, wedges and putting, that's going to work out well for Bo. You mentioned Denny, T4 here, T12, been in the mix the last handful of years. And again, you go back here, you got to think through this a little bit too. I think it's safe to evaluate Denny McCarthy and say he's a different golfer, right? He's made some just overall changes in his game that can be massively impacting that as well. Seamus Power would come here a lot, touched on Mav. Spieth in the field again. We'll see Spieth for the first time since the wrist surgery. Again, I mean, these guys are not, obviously they're giving up a massive check by not coming. So, but you would also expect that you wouldn't want to risk further injury or do anything like that. So you imagine we got a pretty healthy Spieth as well. So, yeah, and Sam in the chat, shout out to Sam. How far can we read into top 10 history from Day when the field strength dramatically increases? I think it's a fair question. But I also think recent form for Jason Day is pretty encouraging as well. So they're, kind of twofold. Course history here beyond last year, I do think is something that we probably take with a grain of salt because the field strength is massively different. But, I think this is why course fit is always going to be over course history for me. But, anything to expand on that, Ron?
Yeah. And even if you're just looking at guys who, are kind of somewhat similar, I just think the fact that Day is so comfortable on these greens, like even if you look at like what we're looking at right now, like Lucas Glover, Man Griffin, Russell Henley, Harmon, these are all like Southeast guys who are so used to Bermuda and, who maybe haven't had the amount of, reps or sample size on pole, like a guy like Jason Day, and who, practices out in the West all the time. And I'm pretty sure he camps out there during the wintertime for a few months. And so he just has this track record of West Coast history. And so even with the field strength increasing, like I said earlier, finished 6th last year and I just think he's a guy who is just really comfortable at a course like this.
Yeah, it's totally fair. Let's kick around the rabbit hole a little bit. Let's look at some of these things that we kind of parse through. I think this is, if you're using the rabbit hole to, build models and mess around with some of this, I know it can be intimidating. That's why we try to present the content this way for you, to show you how to use it and think through it. I think starting with Ron's preview, he's got, again, all the details that you would possibly want in there. You can get some ideas on some key stats and what you would want to do. Take that over to the tournament stat page that we just looked at, kind of see if there's anything else that jumps out and catches your eye, and then dig into the rabbit hole and start to look at some of these things before you start putting a ton of conditions on stuff, or, just looking at maybe some stuff that doesn't matter, that wouldn't really tell you the story of what you're looking to try to do here. So I think this is a great kind of way that you should probably start your approach when you're kind of building into this. So I think a couple of things we touched on here, Ron, I think just looking at performance overall and maybe approaches on short golf courses. So let's maybe start there. We'll go into the filter by conditions section. We'll look at course length. We'll look at short and very short. Again, I don't want anything that's capturing, Pinehurst or Memorial Park, or, just anything that's long, and testing these guys in a different way. I want to get a sense of who's played well when the demand is short and very short. So right now I'm on 12 months. Let's see what our sample size is for these guys, and maybe we need to back it out a little bit. Well, we're getting 40 rounds. 35, 40 is kind of the threshold that I like for a sample size. So I'm okay with this. Let's look at this just recent form, I guess, last year or so in short and very short golf courses. Smaller sample for the guys at the top: Scotty Scheffler, Justin Thomas, Max Grayson, Jason Day. So again, like, to me, when someone wants to make a Jason Day case, this is the Jason Day case to me that I buy more than, than maybe I would buy on course history alone. Again, a lot of this is tied to putting, but still pretty good. Wyndham Clark, Ben Griffin, Sanjay, Aaron Rai, Ludwig, Sepp again. You can go back to Sepp here on short golf courses makes sense. If you just look at approach, or even, you can say ball striking, but again, off the tee mitigated, Scotty, Hoagie, Lowry, JT, Ben Griffin, your top five. You can see some of those other names that I think make some sense here right off the jump as well. Any takeaways on this run?
So this is what I love about the rabbit hole, because like you said, we're trying to recreate the conditions that they're going to face this week. And so just taking the view of, okay, we want everything short. How do they perform in short courses? And so this is what I love about it. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these names for sure make sense. And one other thing I'll add is, if you don't you're more of a shorter sample size guy, like you don't want to extend too far, and if you wanted to, you could do it both ways. You could do it. You could take a weight percentage of this, and then if you wanted to expand out to 3 years and put that as a smaller percentage, and just to try to capture it. And even if you just put this sample as maybe only 5% of your total model, you can at least view it, and you can kind of compare and see, how players have performed over time, and if they've been consistent, from this year compared to 3 years. So there's just so many ways you can kind of work the rabbit hole to however you want it to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I would actually say I'm probably a longer sample size guy, but you want to make sure we get at least a good sample. We're going to get a mix of these guys, right? You could just see, like, Scotty's not going to play a lot of courses necessarily that are shorter golf courses, whereas, Eric Cole's out here every single week, right? His sample size is double. But again, that actually makes his performance even more important. And again, a lot of it tied to putting. So I think understanding where it's coming from is important too. Getting knocked for off the tee, but it's a spot where it doesn't matter a ton. So to your point, you can put all these in. You can just kind of cascade, date ranges and just weigh them differently, right? If you want to give more weight to more recent form, but still capture what someone has done, say over, a 2 to 3 year period, you can do all that as well. So it's a great call out. Let's look at average here too, because I think this is a great way to see, the deltas between players, to see if there's anyone that's, jumping out, which obviously when you see rank, it matters. But this is kind of what I was expecting to see, and borderline laughable. Then you see, JT's second. Okay. It's a full stroke. he's just really good, guys. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. He's 4-1 for a reason. He's absolutely terrifying anytime he's in, teeing it up. So Scotty, a full stroke better than the field on short golf courses over the last 2 years, which is absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, and this is why you have to look at average, because if you're just looking at rank, you're missing all this. And just to see the gap between players, and I mean, even tee to green, the gap's even more, which is obvious with his putting struggles. That makes sense.
Yeah,
but it
he's
just
field
shows
average
you
putting.
that, yeah.
It's absolutely insane, right? We give so much credit to these other elite ball strikers, and they are. I mean, like Colin Morikawa is an elite ball striker. Russell Henley, Ludwig Ober, elite ball strikers. Corey Connors, elite ball strikers. They are miles away from Scotty Scheffler, which is just just wild to see.
And that's what kind of makes this week, I guess, hopefully for others, even more intriguing, because it's like, okay, the guy hasn't played golf. He's been through an injury.
Yep.
How's his hand going to respond? Like, it's the best, but is he going to be the best this week? So it'll be very interesting to see if he has to, take a round or two to knock some rust off.
Yep, for sure. It's just, this is, these things are mind numbing. I always love percentage of rounds gained. It just shows you the consistency, the floor, how frequently someone is doing this. It takes out some of the spiked weeks. And again, you can go look at the spiked weeks too, in a different view. But if you just look tee to green, how frequently he's gaining tee to green literally every round, right? So, and awesome to see Justin Thomas right there as well. But then we have a massive gap, right? Like Russell Henley, fantastic, but I mean, 1 out of every 4 rounds, he's losing strokes tee to green, and he's third in the field, right? So he's absolutely elite. But when you're comparing him to what Scotty's doing, it's just night and day. So, yeah, Russell Henley again doesn't come here very often, but seems like a guy that's built for a spot like this too. So, all right, so short and very short, and I think again looking at approach in the same window as well. This is a way that I like to look at those wedge fests, because I think it's another way to do it versus looking at the shot distribution range, because I think it's going to tell you a very similar story, which is important as well. And again, another spot where Scotty is separating from the field. So yeah, he's good. And again, you can't not look at any of this data and not just be like, why the hell am I betting someone else? But hard to make a lot of money betting on Scotty at 4-1. So especially coming off of a hand injury, this is a great week. I'm someone that's not afraid to fire on Scotty. People like to complain that, he kills outright golf betting. Find ways to get creative and do it. Coming off of a hand injury, first time of the year, I'm going to sit out, and it's going to be absolutely terrifying.
So no, you're not taking Scotty and the Chiefs?
Scotty, yeah. It's actually not a bad idea, Ron, to be honest. I'll be honest, I did think about it. And most of my bets have been down the board this morning, so I have room at the top if I wanted to take a swing. Yeah, he's petrifying. Let's see what else we want to do here. I want to look at less than driver off the tee. And again, because off the tee doesn't matter a ton, let's look at good drive percentage with less than driver. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think it's something that I'm going to definitely include.
Okay.
And again, this is like I said at the start, you're basically in control. Like, even the wild, crazy drivers are going to be clubbing down, and they're just trying to hit their spot to set up their approach. So I don't think every lesson driver course is exactly like this one, but I think in general, if you're looking for anything off the tee, I think that does matter. And I think the good drive percentage definitely comes into play with the, tiny greens like this, because, it kind of measures who is making it, who is hitting the green, even when you don't hit your drive in the fairway.
And we went through the data, right? The data backed up that this is the stat off the tee that matters most relative to a PGA Tour event. When you think through it too, clubbing down, we really want to approach. And again, this is a double counting approach, and we'll always tell you, be careful with overfitting some of this stuff. But if you're going to double count anything in a standard model like this, make an approach. It's the thing that matters the most. Basically, every single event, So if you're to, ever be in a spot where you're looking to double count, this would be it. Good drive percentage, less than driver last 2 years. So decent sample. Tops Russell Henley, Brian Harmon, Victor Hovland, Scotty Scheffler, Colin Morikawa, Austin Eckroat, Tom Kim, Aaron Rai, Sepp Straka, and then your winner last week, Harris English, there as well. So, a lot of these guys north of 85%, which is great, which is above the tour average. No one massively separating, but, Henley on top again. Less than dry. Either way, he's finding fairways off the tee at a high rate, and he's an elite wedge player. So let's see, Scotty still top 4, even though his driver, his way to separate off with a driver is pretty massive. He's still in the mix here with less than driver.
Yeah, and you're kind of turning me on to Henley here because he's coming up like top 3 and everything. So, and I like see Victor Hovland pop up here. I'm pretty sure I'm not trusting him yet this week with what he's been going through.
For sure.
Even on the DP World Tour, when he last event he played in, but yeah, like Morikawa, I think we've seen him and JT kind of popping up on some of these as well. And this course kind of should fit both of those guys to a T. So yeah, just kind of going through these names, and yeah, I'm starting to like Russell Henley now.
Yeah. I mean, Vetsper's Golf subscribers know that I'm a sucker for Russell Henley anyway. I think he's really good. I think he's massively improved. His course history here is not good, but mostly because he just hasn't come here very much. And last year he didn't play really particularly well. But yeah, I think there's confidence to be gained off of being a part of a President's Cup team and some of those other things too. So let's look at, because again, I don't love it, and I think we can maybe capture it through the short course approach stuff, but let's look at those proximity ranges this week, because I do think they matter a little bit more. You just have just a higher distribution from that 50 to 100, 100 to 150 range. You can look at it from fairway or rough, but just looking at the ability to overall proximity and get a sense of who's best in those ranges. It's a small, it's a big sample. We'll go down just the last calendar year. Again, you're going to get a good sample here, and who is overall best from these ranges. I think you're going to see some similar names that we've been seeing here in a handful of other spots as well. We'll let this data, because again, pretty sizable sample here. Your best wedge player from 50 to 100 in the last 12 months, Russell Henley, Wyndham Clark. Again, that tells you a little bit of last year, right? Wyndham, really good with his wedges in his short game, and he was able to take advantage of that here last year. Siwoo Kim, Scotty Scheffler, Ludwig second here last year, Brendan Todd, who nice course history here, really got in the mix a couple of years ago. I think I had him in like 120 on second place. Good sweat there on Henley in the Rose year. Hideki, Finau, Gim, Tom Hoagie, a winner here in the past, Keegan Bradley. So that's 50 to 100. And then you jump into 100 to 150. And again, I like to see where the guys that are top 10 in both. Scotty at the top here, Henley second here. JT, really good from this range. Lucas Glover, Hoagie, top 10 in both. Shane Lowry, Justin Lauer. This is always peculiar to me when it's kind of red everywhere else. And again, I don't want to downgrade him too much for the stuff that doesn't matter a ton, but just he has a club in this range where he just, you give him a 9-iron and he feels really good. It's his favorite club in the bag, apparently. Or maybe a gap wedge. Tom Kim, JJ Spawn, Doug Gim, again, top 10 in both, which is interesting to see too. So anything jump out here to you other than obviously Russell Henley, who I'm unintentionally shoving down your throat?
Yeah, it's more of the same, I mean, and we can look at, like, there's so many ways, again, in the rabbit hole, I know rough is not coming into play as much this week. But yeah, like, we've got it all. If you want to look in these 50-yard buckets, if you want to get more narrow in the 25 yards, like, we were looking on the course stats page, if you want to go by that range. So yeah, I just love the flexibility that, the rabbit hole provides. And if you, especially in a week like this, where you really want to focus on wedge players, you can get as granular as you want in here.
Yep. Yeah. And I think looking at this too, like, I'm just looking at fairway, right? So you're thinking less than driver, right? If I think I'm taking driver out of the hands, chances are these guys are going to find fairways at a higher rate. And you can just look at these across the board. I think this is a great way to do it, where you can see, okay, Scotty, basically top 10 and everything. Not super surprising, right? All the way, because we were just looking at 50 to 100, 100 to 150. Russell
Click
Henley,
on
same
average.
thing.
Let's see how
Sure.
much of a lead he has in that fairway to that 75 to 100 if he's got a massive edge.
No, but decent,
Yeah.
he's turns out he's really, really good. You can see here too, just where the guys that can really separate themselves. So, Ludwig in the mix here last year, relative to some of the others in this, longer range, not quite as sharp, but still, again, a guy that can really make a chance to separate himself on that one spyglass round as well. So, Henley, Keegan, Decky, Sepp. This is part of why I was on Sepp at the Amex. Is shorter approach shots, and those have been something that he's been really dialed in on. These are good numbers for Sepp again. Again, this tells a good story about how Wyndham Clark landed the plane last year too. Really strong, approach from proximity from short distance there with the wedges too. So Tom Kim kind of hot and cold. But again, this is a great way, as Ron said, you can get as granular on this as you possibly can imagine. All right, I want to look at two more things. I'll look at par 5 scoring, as you mentioned, as a way to separate yourself. Would you add any filters? You just want to look at par 5 scoring at all, like in general? Should we look at par 5 scoring on shorter golf courses? Should we do, any like less than driver? Anything that you want to put on here, or just look at just overall par 5?
So, looking at the scorecard, okay, so we've got 516, we've got 523, and we've got 543. And so Pebble Beach does have at least those 3 holes, some of the shortest par 5s on tour. So I think looking at it from a short course perspective, now that doesn't mean it plays out on all short courses that have, also have short par 5s. But I think that's one way to look at it. These are not difficult par 5s. So, another method is we could go to par 5 scoring in the filter menu, and we could select maybe easy and average, and, kind of take out all the difficult ones, which I may like that one better than trying to capture short. So,
all right, go down to par 5 scoring. Oh, where did I go? Par 5 scoring. So just want to, we'll do average and easy. Take out the difficult ones. All right, let's see what we got here. And again, I'm looking at the last 12 months. We might have to manipulate the sample to see if we can get a better sample. No, you're getting a good sample, I think, for these guys. Birdie or better rate, par 5 scoring last 12 months on average and easy par 5s. Hey, Scotty Scheffler at the top. Let's look at the average, see if there's a gap. And we can look at his average score, and then we can look at the birdie or better rate too. Scotty is birdieing 62.5% of his par 5s that are easy and average. Max Grayson just continues to play really good golf. Davis Thompson, Taylor Pendrith. This Harry Hall, I believe, is out of the field. Let's have to update here this morning.
He's back in. No, he's in.
Is he back in? Okay.
Yeah, he got back in.
Hoagie, again, defending, not a defending champ, but a previous winner here. Siwoo, Johnny Vegas, Minwoo Lee, Cantley, Sanjay, Adam Scott. And you look at just the average par 5 score in this range. That's not good for Sepp, right? This is bad for Sepp. In the case that I was making for him, this is interesting for Brandon Todd. Again, played here well in the past, but again, that's definitely going to be, weaker fields where Brandon Todd can jump out versus a field that includes Scheffler and company. Scheffler, Davis Thompson, Grayserman, Pendrith, Ludwig, Hall, Hoagie, Vegas, Cantley, Bobby Mack, Billy Ho, Mark Hubbard, all right here in the mix. So,
and interesting to see Rory kind of a little farther down there because he normally eats up the par 5s. But you can see here is, his skill set, especially on longer, more difficult types of par 5s, probably are going to be, mitigated for sure here. So, just not a great course fit, which is going back to your point of why he's probably never played here, or maybe once or twice, I think. But yeah, that's just interesting to see some of the names some of the bombers. We do see some bombers like Taylor Pendrith, but Taylor Pendrith has always played well on all types of courses, especially the shorter ones. So
Yeah,
just interesting to see those
it is.
differences.
Yeah, it is a good call. I mean, Wyndham Clark, another guy that could separate on par fives. Good putter, a lot of distance, good wedge player. Kind of in the middle here as well. Which is interesting to see. So, yeah, again, Rabbit Hole allows you the ability to look at this through so many different ways. I think this is really, really interesting here too. Let's jump into some putting stuff. I don't typically look at the ranges too much, but I think we probably should. I would want to look at overall putting. And then I think obviously we need to look at POA because it is definitely a unique test. It's a test that these guys don't see quite as frequently. Obviously seeing, a lot of Bermuda and Bent and, even POA Triv compared to the POA stuff. It is a different, unique test that we can take a look at here. So let's look at POA. Do you want to do anything in terms of, how easy it is to gain, or should we just look at the ranges on POA?
So my strategy this week, I'm looking at straight POA first, and then I'll take a second weight, and I'll put because the greens are so difficult here, I'll do the gain putting on difficult and very difficult.
Okay.
Or another option you could do is you could go to difficult inside 15 feet and just kind of get. I mean, you could do all three of those. So I would do all three separately just to kind of get different viewpoints, not to bunch them all together. But yeah, I think all three of those are very important this week.
Good call. I wouldn't do all of them. So if you're listening, if you're going to do, POA, difficult, very difficult, and difficult to gain or whatever, you're going to get a really small sample. You can see even here, the last 12 months, we're getting 15 rounds played for these guys. So it's not nothing. It's worth taking a look at. But I also think it's just really hard to get a sample that's super duper useful, right? Like Bobby Mack has 2 rounds played. Like that's not doing us any good. Gary Woodland, the U.S. Open winner here. But again, we're talking about 6 rounds in the last calendar year. So if you back out, we say the last 3 years, again, we're going to get smaller samples on a Dunlap, a Bobby Mack anyway, because again, Dunlap is, in his second year, Bobby Mack coming over from the DP World Tour. You're going to get some of this. You can use the minimum round feature to take these guys out if you'd like. But let's just look at the data as it is.
And putting, right? Looking at putting.
Putting, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm looking at par 5 efficiency. But again, you're going to have to play around with these. You're not going to get perfect samples with everyone because things are just a little bit different. So this is POA putting last 3 years. Again, Pavon, small sample. We'll go into average here and get a better look at this. All right, strokes gained putting. Matthew Pavon at the top. Akshay, again, he's small sample for both these guys. Denny McCarthy, Jake Knapp, small sample, 8 rounds. Max Homa, bigger sample, California kid, obviously. Harris English, again, your winner last week. Tom Hoagie, good POA putter. Harry Hall, Seamus Power, Sam Stevens, Matt McNeely, Brandon Todd, Colin Morikawa, which I think is interesting to see. So, again, sample is going to be the tricky part with the POA.
Yeah, and this is one for sure that because POA is it's something that is established over time, and so I'll definitely go 5 years. And for something like POA, I'll even go all records just to okay, who's done it for a long time, who's got the most experience. So again, it's different ways people like to do it, but I think personally this is one I would go a little bit bigger sample.
You go all records, all rounds, POA putting. You're going to get some massive samples for, Spieth and we say 5 to 10. Let's see here. All right. Again, small sample for Pavon, Wyndham Clark, Akshay 12 rounds, Ludwig 15, Denny, Knapp, Hovland, Seabez, Cantley, Harmon, Mav, Thigala, and Pendrith, who you called out earlier. So again, this is a tougher place to do it. This is a little bit lower than tour average. But again, you can decide if this is something you want to look at all. You can decide if you want to, how you want to weigh it. We jump into this even shorter range here, these 3 to 5s. Gracerman, Cole, Mav, Lee Hodges, Ludwig, Sam Stevens, Hovland, Burns, Thigala, Dietrich. Dietrich played well here last year as well. So again, I think obviously putting in baseline putting as well, just matters as well. Like compared to how they typically do, you want to get a sense of who can really separate on POA. It's a little bit tricky. So lots of ways to look at it this week. One more thing before we're done. I just want to look at it quickly. Weather could be okay. We are, especially at Pebble, exposed to conditions and the wind. You're going to have some spots where you can get some really windy conditions. So just take a look. Windy conditions. And again, these are gusts, but if we're going to have sustained, that's possible for chunks of this round or this event for that are, say 15 to 25. Let's just see who's playing pretty well. When the conditions are windy. I'm going to mess around with I could do all records, all rounds. We're going to get I was actually pretty quick for the data to jump in and capture that here. So let's look at the last 50 rounds played, windy conditions. Some guys are not going to have 50 rounds played in windy conditions, but you can just see here. When you look at wind, Rod, do you look at strokes gained total, or do you look at tee to green or ball striking? What do you? Because obviously putting can be affected by wind as well. How do you look at strokes gained stats when you're looking at wind?
Yeah, mostly ball striking, but I do think you need to take the full data into account because what you do, ball striking also affects where you are on the greens as well. So, and yeah, we've seen balls moving on the greens. We know that putts are strongly affected by gusty winds. So, I don't think it hurts to take a kind of a ball striking and then kind of do a total if you're looking at that. And another option this week also is we do have a filter for coastal courses, which kind of captures the wind as well. And so, that's another option if you can check that out as well. So so many different ways you can kind of divide things up here.
Totally. Good call. Yeah. You can go up here in the very top course type and look at coastal courses and you can go from there as well. But your last 50 rounds, strokes gained, ball striking leaders and windy conditions here. Finau, Vegas, Rory, Morikawa, Connors, Scotty, JT, Sanjay Hovland, and Gary Woodland. If you just look at, strokes gained total in that range, you can see Finau playing well in windy conditions ahead of Rory, Scotty, Sanjay, Seabez at the top 5. So again, we're on Monday morning. We'll have a better sense of what the wind looks like as we get closer to, Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. Subscribers can jump in our Discord AMA with Ron, get any of his questions here as you're making DFS lineups, any final bets, all that stuff for subscribers in the Discord. Get a sense of, is there a wave advantage? A little bit trickier when you're dealing with a smaller field because, typically all going off at a more compressed time, especially over, 2 different courses. So wave advantages are a little bit mitigated, but you never know. Maybe you have a better sense of that come Wednesday afternoon. But again, something that you can look at here through the rabbit hole as well. So anything else before we wrap?
And I'm going to hurry up and get my Russell Henley bet in and move on with my life.
Yep. My first click this morning was Russell Henley at 70 on FanDuel. It's too high. There were 33s in the market as well. So that should not have been out there. But Albert in the chat, what about chipping within a couple feet of the hole? I'm not sure exactly what you mean. You can go into the rabbit hole and look at around the green proximity. But if that's what you're asking, that is something that is, you can get the data here, multiple ways to look at around the green, but around the green proximity is the answer to that.
I think, and this is something that I know, especially on POA, with some of these guys who are a little more shaky, if you're off the green, if you can chip it close enough, if you're that good of, and you can see that with our around the green proximity, you don't have to worry as much about, sinking those, 8-foot putts on POA if you can chip closer. So I do think around the green proximity is another stat you can definitely look at this week.
Yeah. He wants to know, is that a factor this week? They are smaller greens.
Yeah, I think for sure, because you are, and we saw the greens in reg is not super low or anything, but I do think, especially if the wind kicks up, you're going to be chipping. And yes, if you can chip closer on POA, you don't have to worry about, those tricky putts as much. So I definitely think it factors.
Yeah. And Rich in the chat wants to know, one and done, Spieth or JT this week. clearly JT, in my opinion.
Yep,
Spieth is
clearly.
coming again. We're coming back off of wrist surgery for Jordan Spieth. I hope he's well. I hope he plays well. Whether you're a Spieth fan or not, the game benefits from Jordan Spieth being very good and competitive. And he's still a draw. So Spieth being good and healthy is a win for everyone. We want that. But I would not put my money on Spieth this week. I would not use him in a one and done this week. Let's get some tournament reps under the belt there. So JT for sure. I think JT's a great look. I wish he was a little bit longer, to be honest. Like I would take a look at JT if he was maybe 18 or 20 or so, but JT at 14 is a little bit thin or short for me. So like him here, though, great wedge player. So, all right, head over to betspertsgolf.com. If you want to check it out for a month subscription, $29.99. Use promo code month10. You get a first month for just $10. You go over on the site as well, betspertsgolf.com. We have a partner with Better, which is a DFS pick'em type app. If you want to get access for longer as well, you can get that through Better. You can check that out with their promo codes over there. But again, just want to dip your toes in for a month 10, $10. Great deal for you to come try it out. Again, you'll get access to Ron's previews, course preview. You get access into our Discord. You get all the picks that we're putting out there. We have a great community that's betting TGL and all these different things. They absolutely get in the weeds on all this stuff. Got some DP World Tour event bets and all sorts of different stuff going on. And then obviously access to all the tools, cheat sheets, all the pages that we have there at BetSports Golf as well. If you want to build your own model in the rabbit hole, check that out. You get access to other people's models as well. We have other people in the space that are building their models, saving them and letting you take a look at those as well. So check it out. Any questions, reach out to us directly.